Welcome back to part 3 of our reverse trike go-kart build, where we're merging this rusty old off-road go-kart with a moped frame and an old Yamaha motorcycle swing arm. On the last couple videos we got the engine running and we started grafting the moped frame onto the go-kart swing arm. We also got the motorcycle swing arm and shocks mounted up. So this thing's now sitting on its own suspension.
Suspend? Look at that.
And on this video, we're going to get things roughly put back together so we can take it on our first test drive. These new tires have been sitting in the garage long enough, and it's been a real pain in the butt moving the cart around with the tires literally falling off the wheels. So I took them down, got them mounted, so this thing will be much easier to move in and out of the garage. And of course, it'll be ready for a test drive. So we got our new front tires on, so this thing is much easier to move around now. But I don't want to push it around too much. I did accidentally crack one of my tack welds because I just wasn't really thinking about it. So I'm going to go ahead and full weld everything we have on here at the moment. And then we need to cut out our second little support here. Do the bolts for our swing arm subframe that go to the go-kart swing arm. So I'll just throw on the time lapse and start gluing metal. So as you can see, the go-kart swing arm is now locked in place with that diagonal support brace. That way we're not dealing with two pivoting points. So I'm just getting that second one finished up and welded in, then we can get to full welding all the other little pieces on the back of this thing. And at that point, all the difficult fabrication parts will be finished. Once all these pieces are welded up, I can drill some holes through the go-kart swing arm, and those will be used to mount our motorcycle swing arm subframe. So, right, okay. So that is the structure of the reverse trike. Done. I've got a couple little pieces of hardware I need to pick up. I just have the shocks kind of zip tied onto the shock mounts at the moment. I need to get some bolts there. Obviously we need to cosmetically paint and whatnot, but everything is done. The only thing that I still have left to do is to make sure we integrate part of the moped frame that has the VIN number. So I'll figure out where that can go. Maybe it'll just go across here or something, but yeah, this looks like a thing. So now at this point we're going to turn our attention to the engine. It needs like a cleanup, a cosmetic cleanup. I'm going to do a valve adjustment, change the oil. The CVT belt is really loose, so I probably need to change that. I need to pull the flywheel off and see what kind of stator it has, because I'm probably going to need to upgrade to a larger stator to power the lights and things, and to help charge up the larger battery we're going to stick on here. So we're going to start turning our attention towards the engine, and once we get that kind of freshened up, then we're going to build our new wiring harness for the engine, and then we'll start turning our attention towards the things at the front, like the brakes, and getting these seats actually bolted down. And then lights, we'll probably paint the whole thing, and then some point in between all that, we'll be able to get this thing on a little bit of a test drive. So let's get that motor kind of set up on a little table or a bench top, and we'll start getting that thing squared away. I realized I put the cart before the horse a little bit. I haven't quite torn that motor down, But I was thinking about it, and I'm actually really close to being able to just test drive this thing. So for the purposes of just being able to sit in it, drive it, go forward, backwards, stop, we're going to put everything back in here and see if it can at least move. I'll have to resize the chain. So that's the plan now. I'm going to get this motor put back in here, throw this thing on time lapse, get the motor back in, pull the old wiring harness out, get that hooked up, get the new brake master cylinder plugged in. I'll have to plug the hole for the third brake line. I'll get the front brakes plugged back in, and then we will see if we can get this thing rolling. This engine isn't the easiest thing to wrestle back up in there, but it is doable by yourself. Now, I'm just getting the front brakes plumbed into the new master cylinder, getting them bled a little bit, and hopefully getting them to at least function enough to stop the dang thing. So the wiring is hooked back up. I've got the battery sitting on the charger. I'm gonna pop the spark plug back in here. And unfortunately the throttle cable, I forgot, it had snapped. So I'm gonna have to reach behind the seat here and just kind of blip the throttle with my hand for this little test drive. You know, assuming it starts and everything. Guess I should have knocked on my wooden skull. Well, the batteries need some help, so I'm just going to let it sit longer on the charger. And then I got some gas coming out of the carb. It might need some adjusting there. I think our automatic choke is also still malfunctioning, even though we put a new resistor in there. I think we might have just cooked it. So that might need to be replaced, and that's going to be making it harder to start when it's cold. So got a couple things going on. It is, you know, firing and sputtering, which is a good sign. So anyway, we're just going to let it sit, and then we're going to come back here in a couple hours or so and see what it does then. Well, the charger said it was 100% charged. Well, I think this battery might be done for it. That's twice now it said it's fully charged, and it doesn't even last 30 seconds worth of cranking before it bogs down. I also think I might have some cleaning or something to do with the carburetor. So that sounds like a tomorrow project. It's getting really cold. We'll deal with this tomorrow. Welcome to tomorrow. We're going to pull this auto choke off and do a little bit of diagnosing on it. So right now, got my little station set up here. First thing I'm going to do is run some tests on these auto choke, or enrichers as they're called. I'm going to run a test on this one. I need to modify my power supply leads to these little tiny clamps that can actually fit inside the sockets there. But I'm going to run some tests on these, and if, you know, everything seems to be okay, this one has continuity, which is a good sign. Then I'm going to pull the carb and, give it a quick clean, see if maybe something's plugging up, not getting fuel, because it seems like it's happier to run on starting fluid. I definitely have fuel in there, in the tank, so maybe the fuel's just not making it where it needs to go inside the carb. So I'll throw the time lapse on this. I'm going to be running some tests and doing a little bit of, wire work here, and then we'll pop the carb off. There's just something about little wiring projects that calms me down. Know what I mean? So here's the setup we got going here. We got the auto choke hooked up to my DC power supply. That thing's super awesome and super cheap. It's like a, lighter duty one, 10 amps. Found it on Amazon for like 30 or 40 bucks. Anyway, I got these things connected here, and I used these calipers here to measure the amount of this needle that was poking out when it was dead cold. So now it's been plugged in here for a minute or two. You can actually feel that this is starting to get warm. And if you look real closely here, you can see that this thing has come out probably like another 1/4 inch. So that means that this thing is functioning as it should. It has continuity. It's expanding when it's getting up to operating temperature. So that means that there's not really a problem with this auto choke. So now what we're going to do is get this all cleaned up, pull the carb out. That means I'm guessing that the fuel is just not getting into through the jets or whatever, so it's probably clogged up. This was Arco gas, not super high quality, and it's only been sitting for a couple months, but you never know. So we're going to pop that thing out, give it a quick clean, get this stuff cleaned up here, and at least now we know that at least this auto choke is functioning. Yes, and now this little carburetor can bleed out on my workbench. I'm just going to do a real rough down and dirty cleaning of this thing, pop the bowl off, pull the jets out, clean all the little ports, scrub the bowl a little bit, and stick it back together. Well, I think I may be reaping the negatives of getting impatient and just running a fuel line straight from that old tank into the carburetor without a fuel filter. The old fuel filter, the housing cracked. I just grabbed a piece of hose and jammed it on there. And all of these little ports in here are filthy. So I'll probably start running a fuel filter, especially since this tank is so old and it's sat outside for so long. It should have been obvious, but I'll go grab a fuel filter, stick it on there after I clean this off. And yeah, that was dumb. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions, right? Alright, I cleaned out the bowl, the floats, cleaned the little ports on the jets. There was a nice little film of varnish on there. I don't know if that's necessarily from me letting it sit, or if it's, this was just sitting in a parts box when I got it, so I don't know what its life was like before. But we scrubbed it up, hopefully well enough to get it to behave better. So we'll get this thrown on there. I'll go grab a fuel filter, get that in line so we don't make things worse again, and see if we can finally get this thing moving today. Grabbed the universal fuel filter from the store, and also grabbed a lawn and garden battery, which is quite a bit bigger than the motorcycle battery, and should be, strong enough to power, the lights and things we're going to want. So since I was there, got it done. It was only like 35 bucks. So. Guess we'll find out if it leaks, huh? Well, at least the new battery sounds a lot happier.
Make sure there's actually fuel in. Yep, there's plenty of fuel coming from that end.
At this point, it just feels like I'm missing something maybe plainly obvious. So I just start poking around and pop off this little breather line, and then
Okay, well, one of these breather lines, I just popped it off of the carb and suddenly it's happy. Maybe this is supposed to go, I mean, it makes sense that this would end up on this side of the carb, not over here. But whatever, if it's happy with it disconnected.
We're gonna take this thing on its first little forward and backward drive in the driveway here. Check that the brakes are actually able to stop it. The throttle cable snapped, so I have to hand control the throttle from back here, and obviously my seat is not bolted down. So here we go. Maybe. Whoop, there's reverse. All right. All right, it's not quite going into forward. Me tinker with it a little bit.
Okay. Got to do a little adjustment here on this.
we'll see if it's actually in forward now. It looks like I'm gonna have to do some adjusting with this cable. I didn't think I messed with it too much when I disconnected it, but I, very well could have, so. We'll do some tinkering with that. We'll see if we can get this thing to move though.
Not yet.
At this point, it feels like I'm just stressing the transmission, not quite getting it all the way in gear, so I'm just going to pop the shift cable off and force it into forward. Okay, so I disconnected the shifting cable. I got to do some adjustments on there. I don't know what I did when I took it apart, but it's not too happy. It should definitely be in forward now. I pushed the little rotating arm all the way into forward. We'll fire it up, go forward. Shut it off, hop out, see if we can switch it into reverse and drive backwards. So let's do it. Helps if you turn the kill switch on. There we go, it's in forward now. If I take my foot off the brake, it wants to roll. All right,
hope this isn't vibrating too bad. Let's do it. Maybe not. Maybe not. I think the CVT belt might be too sloppy. I know it's loose. Come on. Just goose it. There it goes. Brakes kind of work. Just watching the chain to make sure it doesn't flip off. I really have to stand on these brakes. Let's try reverse. I don't think it actually locks into reverse. I say to hell with it. We're gonna see if we can go up the street without it exploding. Fuel tank fell down a little bit.
I spent the next 30 minutes or so messing with that shift cable, seeing if I could get it to work.
So I haven't quite got reverse nailed down, like it's not quite there, but it is reversing. Come on. Yeah, it's not too happy. Let me try on. That's probably reverse. There it is. Try forward. There it is. Here we go.
We got a driving reverse trike. Hell yeah. Alright, so I got some adjustments to do. I gotta adjust that, the shift lever. I don't know what's going on with the cable, but it's not too happy. These brakes are horrible. So I'll maybe need to bleed some more of those. We're gonna do a little bit of a tune-up. I think the CVT belt is slipping. I think it's pretty loose when I looked in there. So we're gonna do a little bit of a freshen up on the motor without going too crazy, because I did use a bore scope to look inside there and it's pretty wet with oil. And honestly, I don't feel like dumping a ton of money into this engine. So we'll freshen it up a little bit and, you know, get it functioning. Get these seats bolted down, get the throttle cable repaired or replaced, adjust the transmission cable, you know, and then we have everything else to do to make it roadworthy, lights and so forth. So, heck yeah. This is more progress than I thought I would make. Very exciting. All right, cool. All that is to come on the next few videos. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next ones. Yeah, see what I mean?